show with published authors, writers, and content creators discussing both the creative and technical sides of writing, as well as the industry surrounding it, from novels to screenplays to comics and more. And now, here's your host, author Travis I. Sivart.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Write Night. It is Saturday, May 30th. Where have the past 2 months gone when I wasn't looking? Hello to all our viewers that have already stopped in. Cavalon, Where to Win, Raw Script Writing, thank you for the host, thank you for the support. And I am Travis Sivart, I am your host, and tonight I'm going to pimp my Journal of a Stranger series. So, it's, I'm working on book 2, volume 2. Which is going to be beginnings going into his origins, where he first started time traveling and how he learned to do what he does. So that's it for me. Let's pop up into the upper left-hand corner to John.
I'm John from Conquest Publishing. Today I'm going to share a piece of artwork we just finished.
Ooh.
Ooh, nice.
Gorgeous.
Nice.
Good to see something before anybody else. Well,
That's cool.
Hold that up again. Bring it a little closer to the camera. I like the shadow behind her. Bring it up a little.
Yeah.
Up, just up. There you go. There's that shadow looming over her. That's very cool. Very cool.
Nice.
So good.
Okay, intro.
you can, if you want to get involved or find a mentor, come to conquestuniverse.com. Our objective is to help you get into the industry. And Jersey's Cards and Comics, our post place.
Erin?
Hi, I'm Erin Kennedy. I'm the author of Persona Non Grata. I've been a technical writer for about 25 years, been published in the Army Times and the NCO Journal for my nonfiction works in leadership and physical fitness. Michael flashed my book, and so is Tempe here. Thank you so much. That's what I got.
And Tempe.
I'm Tempe Wade. I'm the author of the Timely Revolution book series. It's a Revolutionary War time travel adventure series. Books 1 through 5 are out. Book 5 was released last week. It's called The Steep Cost of Fate, and it carries on the journey between Maggie and Duncan. So check it out.
And then last but not least, in the center of everybody's screen, Michael.
Oh, I'm in the center. Whoa. Hey, I'm Michael Thompson. I'm an author and illustrator. I'm the author of, yes, Winslow Hoffner's Incredible Encounters, Folkloric Fantasy on the High Seas, Cryptids, Sea Monsters, Epic Urban Legends that few have beheld, but there's one man who's seen them all, the gallant fisherman Winslow Hoffner. Check it out. Amazon.
There we go. Now we have so many people popping in chat. I'm going to do the usual thing of calling people out here that are regulars and saying hello. I want to say hello to Cavalon, Chris, and Pepper Garden, who is Gary, and that's us. Ross, and Where to Win, and Spacey Tracy, and I thought there was somebody else. Who did I miss? Did I miss somebody? What is that? Spacey Tracy with 9 months of Twitch Prime. We've had a Twitch baby.
Yay!
Potamos, that's who's the other one. Good to see everybody. Thank you for joining in and supporting us. I want to remind everybody, this is a structure show. We try to stay on topic, but there are many tangents. Also, for those of you listening on podcast, don't forget you can join us live, comment, and interact with us at twitch.tv/Travis Tavern Talk every Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. I say every, except when life gets crazy. And it has been crazy this week. Now, other than that, if you're listening to us live and you ever miss an episode, don't forget you can catch us on streaming services such as, oh, hold on, I wrote a list. Check that out. iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Deezer, Podcast Addict, Podchaser, and Stitcher. Whew. We're everywhere.
Nice.
I think that's good. Did I get everything, guys? Oh, don't forget to subscribe. Use Twitch Prime to subscribe for free and get the benefits of that. Appreciate you guys throwing bits, supporting the channel across the board. The most important part of that is not the cash. It's the showing up. So here's to everybody.
We like the cash.
Yeah, we love cash.
Travis, what are they reading?
Oh, thank you. Yes, as Erin has pointed out, the thing we love to ask our viewers in the very beginning, let us know right there in chat, so you guys can create discussion amongst yourselves as well as ourselves. What are you reading or writing at the moment? Let us know a little bit about your project, where your word count is at, or just what author you're just binging on right now. Okay, so tonight's topic is pantsing versus planning. And pantsing is sneaking up behind somebody with their pants hung below their underwear and pulling them down. But it's also writing without a plan and just pouring it out on the page without worrying about structure and plotting and all this stuff, just pouring your heart out onto the page. Planning, on the other hand, is the other end. So tonight, whatever concept these guys have, but also in addition to that, comparing and contrasting and pointing out there's no wrong way to do it as long as you're writing.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get more into details of that and opinions of that and some facts on occasion too. So, Erin's all excited. Erin, why don't you start us out with some opinion, thought, topic, question?
Okay, so coming from the technical side, friggin', there is always a plan.
Right.
You start off with your outline, and then you fill in the blanks, and then you adjust your outline and fill in the blanks, and so on and so forth.
Well, by you, you mean you, not everybody.
Oh, no, on heavy technical writing?
Oh, in technical writing. Okay, no, I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's extreme over to the one side because you've got a specific goal you're trying to accomplish across the board. And it may be a very narrow thing and you're just building it off that, or it could be something a lot deeper, but you've got to hit these points. And you work along the way. When I started writing fiction, all that went out the window. And it was one of those, okay, I had a concept of where I started and a concept of where I went, and my goal was to connect A through Z, but I didn't necessarily have a plan or an outline to do it, especially with Persona non grata. Having learned some lessons from that one, especially on the marketability side, my new series, Icarus Black, I'm friggin' doing heavy outlines on that one. I've got goals that are just checkmarked down the list through the entire book series. Yes, Travis?
You know, I think it'll be interesting to talk to you in 6 months or 2 years or whatever to see the other side of that, the benefit of pantsing on top of the planning, and how sometimes planning can actually stint you. Not that it always does, but there's points in time where, as somebody who does both, I have seen my plan go out the window.
Oh, absolutely.
Because there's something better. Mm-hmm.
Well, the big thing there was the fact that you get, whenever you're planning, a lot of times you get caught up in the minutia of the stuff. It's like, oh, I've got to hit this point, and sometimes it's not the right spot to do it, so you reorganize and it changes everything back, so your planning just dies. You're like, okay, well, shoot. And I flashed this earlier. Here's the electrical code book. This is the prime example of a planned document. It is that thick, and it's broken up into sections that just hit everything. But a lot of times you'll go back and go, oh, well, what I want to talk about is actually in section 1 by section 12, and so on and so forth, because they're all interrelated.
So who's got some feedback on that, or shall we just jump to Tempe? Because I love Tempe's style, where she just pours it out. Now, Tempe, am I mistaken if I say no planning at all?
No planning at all. I just sit down and I start typing, and whatever comes to mind, that's what I put down and that's what I go with. And if I get to a point where I'm stuck and, something doesn't connect the right way, I stop and remind myself, oh, this is my playground. I can change whatever I want. I can do whatever I want. I can make my world whatever I want it to be when I'm writing. And that's something you need to keep in mind. You don't need to stay to a structured plan when it's your litter box, it's your playground, it's your world. You can do whatever you want with it. So that's important. And with the historical stuff, I have to stick to it to a certain extent, to just kind of keep the time timeline correct and the historical stuff correct.
Mhm.
But as far as the fantasy stuff, that's all mine. I can do whatever I want with that. I can bring people in, I can make them magical, I can kick them out, I can kill them off, I can do whatever I want to do. So,
So
or if they die in real life, I can bring them back to life and just not tell anybody. So it's that type of thing.
so would you say with your pantsing, to use the term we
Mm-hmm.
have in the topic, you have the skeleton of history to build on? So
Yes.
that's your planning part, if you will.
Right, right, right.
Look at
That's
you doing both. By the way, Ross here, who's a young script writer and just started streaming, says, "Man, I relate to Tempe." So there we go. It's
yeah. It's
Mhm.
it's just get it down on paper, and then you can clean up details later. If something doesn't quite work, but you can always clean up stuff later. But just when you're writing, if it's flowing, just let it flow out. And with me, it was very much a flow thing. I did 93,000 words in 30 days, and it was just a flow because it constantly flowed and it never stopped. And I also, the next 30 days, I did 80,000 words. I had 6 books within 6 months because it was just flowing so well. And like I said, the rest of it you go back and clean it up as you go. So yeah.
So John or Michael, who else has some opening thoughts on this? I see both of them grinning. Wow.
Well, that's a lot of lines, all those words. But anyways,
It is. Well, you're a man of few words considering it's comics.
indeed. I get to, like most times, have my foot in all kinds of both of these to start with. I'll probably start with the planning for younger writers, artists, etc. Having a plan and having a structure, they need guidance. They actually look forward to having that so that you're not surprising them with something. So scheduling and a plan is actually very useful for them.
That's actually a good thing I'm going to bring back up in a little while is because part of planning could be scheduling when you write, etc. So we'll get back to that because I think we all have a lot to
deadlines
say
and
about
stuff
that.
like that.
It's a good point.
But go on, John, with what you were saying.
And then, and scheduling and stuff too. So they actually look forward to having, a goal to get to. The pantsing part, I tend to do that more with the adults, as we talked before. I have my story up here in my head. Okay, now let's start grabbing it out of there and start seeing where we're going to hit these plot points and stuff and start getting it on paper, and see where it goes from there. And sometimes it's brainstorming situations, which is definitely pantsing.
Yeah.
You give a couple prompts and it's like, all right, so are we on Earth? Are we out in space? Is it a team book? Is it an individual character book? Are they aliens? And you just see where it kind of leads itself to. So.
Right. And then everything that you've pantsed then becomes the planning.
Indeed.
Next thing afterward.
That's true.
So-
You do have to build.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
what
it's
about
like
you, Michael,
building
with some opening thoughts?
Opening thoughts. I think I do a bit of both, and I think I'd be a pantser if I didn't think so often during one project about the next project. I have those scenes that sort of pop into my head. So lots of the visual stuff and the choreography of battles or like big scenes. I'll imagine and I'll hold that in my head or make notes or draw, and I think a big way that I plan is concept art for a lot of my characters, and we talked about this just last episode, but just drawing your characters so that you can zoom in your focus and get that fine detail understood. Yeah.
And if I may, even if you can't draw, guys, don't hesitate to draw out your characters or your spaceship or the house or whatever. Giving yourself that visualization. There we go. Exactly. There's some maps.
Cool. Perfect.
Which I have done maps of my own. It doesn't hurt because nobody needs to see it except for you, and you're the only one that has to understand it. And let me say hello real quick to Scribbler and Ross saying, when I started my project at 12, I had a plan. but it was very hard to follow. I love having a wide range, little outline, so I can work with a little freedom, and that definitely makes sense to me. And really understand the scene in the head. Really understand the scene in head. That's usually how I write my stuff. I'm loving the stream. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Erin?
And I think a key point on that is
Lift your mic.
the outline. There we are. Okay. I think a key point on that is a plan doesn't have to be a restraint. It's a constraint, not a restraint. So you get yourselves on a little bit of a road, like, oh, I'm going to go down to Tappahannock to visit Travis. That doesn't mean I have to take 95 or 17 or whatever. It just means that I'm heading a specific direction. And I've got specific things that I want to accomplish. As an example, a couple, 3 weeks ago, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to go down there. I'm going to help them with an electrical project. We ended up hanging up a light. That is completely off plan, but within the same realm of what I was going to do. And then I visited John over at the comic shop because I happened to be down there. And it's those side tours that kind of make things interesting.
Right.
You're not seeing, okay, yeah, they've got to get from point A to point B, but it's not a straight line. It's a zigzag. And in writing, you do the same kind of thing.
If you plan so much that your story can't take on a life of its own, perhaps it's a little too much restraint. It's just a structure, a guidepost. To use the physical journey, which I love to use as a comparison, you know, if Aaron needs gas, it doesn't matter what gas station he stops at. And maybe he gets a soda there and a sandwich and sees a crazy person. Maybe it's just a mirror. We don't know. But it's open. And the same thing with writing. In the book I'm writing now, Journal of a Stranger, Volume 2, Beginnings, I had this really brief outline. Basically, this is the structure I wanted for each chapter. And it's like one line, like 5 words. And as I hit, like the 60% point, I found I had fallen off of my structure. And I didn't go back and correct course. I went, no, I like what I'm writing. Better than what I wrote before, matter of fact. So I'm sticking with this. I just have to make things tighter, you know, on the last couple things if I want to do the word count I'm planning on. And if not, I will go over. Because if I'm enjoying it that much, it's of value to the story. And set aside your outline initially. Scribbler, I'm not sure. By underwriting, do you mean like the financial type of underwriting? You define underwriting a little bit, and I'll let you know if it fits with this topic, because a lot of things fit with this topic. It is a wide open topic.
It's, yeah.
Now, do you guys have more for that? Because I have a couple things I wrote down here.
I got one quick thing.
Yeah.
I think this is going to apply to John. I think it's going to apply to Michael here. One of the cool things that you can do in writing is your flashbacks or your side scenes and things like that. I actually just finished up Michael's book, Winslow Hofter, this last week, and he's got a story, and it's going in over the course of a couple weeks, but there's a couple quick segues where we're taking a look into, rather than, our narrator character, John, we get over to the bar scene where Winslow's just, and John's not even present. You're able to do that with John himself. Friggin', he's probably very, very familiar with the flashback tropes to where, okay, this is going to help me out in this situation, but it's out there. So you've got the ability to adjust your time or your chronology inside your book or the rails and just, I'm going to jump over here and I'm looking at something different, which is a great way to get yourself out of those restraints and constraints as well.
Can you put that in the form of a question? No, you don't have to. John had an answer.
John.
Yeah.
So I think that overall, planning takes precedence over structure, just overall in a broad sense. So structure for me, let's say we're doing a script or a comic. We'll have 3x5 cards that are similar to Travis's outline, but I can move those 3x5 or those storyboard cards around within my structure to still match my plan, because the plan overall is what I want. It's not saying that structure is not important, but I think that overall the planning is what takes precedence.
It's interesting to divide planning versus structure, and I'd love you to define that a little bit more for everybody.
So, planning overall, you'll have your, well, it depends on the particular project, but let's say that we're planning on, well, because deadline dates are important, but
Sure.
we're planning on putting together Whitebird by the end of the year. Well, I know that I have to plan to have pencils done by a certain time period. I have to have inks done by a certain time period. But sometimes also within the story, somebody might not have part of their project done, although that's part of the structure. I got to move that to another place to catch up. Now, in storytelling, I mean, it's a little bit different in that you're planning on certain events, and your structure can be moved around to help those events happen.
Okay.
So,
Like-
if I want to develop a particular character in a story arc, that I know that I want to, because I want to have each character have their own little, day in the sun. I might move that character structurally, closer to the beginning or more to the end as the story develops. Because sometimes it hits here and it starts spreading out enough to where I don't have room to put that other character, but it's going to make more sense to put them later on now into the book. So the structure changes a bit. Versus the planning, I plan on having that character.
Gotcha. Erin?
Something John's keying in on, and Adam Carolla talks about this on his podcast when he was doing the Man Show. All right, at the beginning of the season of the Man Show, he goes, "Okay, we've got friggin' 13, 15 episodes to fill," and they go, "Okay, we got bits. We got to come up with bits to kind of fill this out," and they're all 5-10 minute bits, and they just start friggin' slapping them on there, and then they move the bits around to where you. So he planned out every single bit, and then he adjusted the structure to create flow. And it's one of those, oh, okay, we're going to have a Man of the Year, Scott Baio, because he slept with a lot of women. We're going to put that at the end because it's a freaking kind of critical point. Or we're going to do progression bits where, like, oh, we like this bit, we want to hit it a couple, 3 times, so let's space them out. Or, okay, this is a better lead-in bit, or this is a better closing bit before commercial breaks and stuff.
Right.
So your structure adjusts according to the plan. There's certain things you want to hit. We want to hit, like on a hero's journey. Okay, you've got to introduce the mentor, introduce the main character, introduce the locations. Okay, check. And they go, okay, well, I don't like this here. It needs to happen before he's introduced our mentor. Or we got to move that back and go, no, we want a villain to show up first. So that everything kind of flows right.
Yeah, you got to feel it out. You really got to feel it out, because you could have an instance where you have your plan and you've planned it a long time, but you get to this certain point, and a lot of times when you're writing, sometimes something happens and you don't know why it happens, but you feel it's important. And if you're a writer, I think you should go ahead and follow that feeling, because your writer mind might be doing something a million steps before you, or it's just magical. So let it happen and see where that seed, see what that grows into. It might develop into something very important later on in the story. And has that ever happened for you guys, where you're like, I don't know why this is important, but this has to go in here, and then it has some like poetic return at the end.
And sometimes it's just a single line. Michael, you've spoken a lot of single lines that have inspired you for like a whole thing around it. And when you guys finish giving your thoughts, I'd like to read a couple comments once you've finished your thoughts.
Yeah, I do that too. I felt the need to put something in, and just kind of, it's like a thread that you just kind of pull on, and you just keep pulling, and the next thing you know, you've got 5-6 chapters out of that one little thread, and it's going down, a different road, taking you a way you didn't think you might go. But yeah, it's important to explore them. If you don't like them, you can always hit delete and start all over again. That's the beauty of writing. If it doesn't work out, and I've done that. I've written as many as 40, 50,000 words and deleted every one of them and started over again because I just couldn't get it to flow the way that I wanted to. Again, it's your playground. You can do whatever you like with it. So.
Well, and sometimes it's not even necessarily that you've always planned to have this character do something. It just makes more sense for it to happen now versus because the way the story's progressed through the story. So.
Very good. Any thoughts, Erin, before I read a couple comments?
No, but the wife just handed me something.
Oh, you get a card.
Well, this actually came from Travis for going out and seeing him last week, I'm assuming, or just because he likes giving cards out, which I think is really the case. But no, friggin' the planning thing. It's I mentioned it I think last week or the week before. I cut 3 chapters at the beginning of Persona non grata to adjust the flow, but I pulled stuff out of those initial things and slid them elsewhere, where I described these little cat monkey creatures called the Cabrin, because I thought it was important.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's one of those, okay, it adds a little flavor. It's not just humans alone in the universe. And I put them elsewhere just to mention them. It's just a little bit of flavor, a little bit of salt on the meat, but it's there. That's right. Circle snap with a twist. But I plugged that in there, or I mentioned, and I think I did that mostly with the aliens and stuff like that, because I didn't want it to just be we're alone in the universe. So I wanted to keep that piece, which was discarded or set aside for later.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Debbie.
Oh no, I was gonna say I do this thing where when I initially write something, I'll just let it flow. I'll put it down, get it down, and then I will open another document, and then I'll cut pieces from it and put it in. Like if it works better here or it works better there. I have 2 documents going usually at the same time when I'm working on something. The initial one and then the one where I go back and clean it up, where I'll just copy, paste, move it over. Same words, same everything else, just like in a different order or a different spot or smoothed out a little bit more. And that's a good way to kind of, clean it up once you go over the first time with it.
Okay, and a couple comments, and there's 2 different comments that go in very different directions, so I'm going to read them one at a time and let everybody give some thoughts on it. Raw Script Writing says, I've gone back to my planning and noticed the length of it, and I'm having to break up the movies in Spy Rift, a trilogy, but I'm worried it could derail everything. Anybody have some advice on that? And after that, I'll read Scribbler's note.
I had this, books 1 and 2 were actually supposed to be just one book for me, but it was too long. The first one was 93,000 words. The second one was over 80,000 words, and I just couldn't put them together in one. So I found a good spot, and just broke it. And that was a spot where they were departing for Philadelphia and having to go to England because of an issue that arose. And I just split it there, and it was a little bit over halfway of the first one, and so I just split it there. If it's a continuous thing where it just drops off and picks right back up, it won't be an issue with that.
Sounds like a good place to break the story. John?
Yeah.
So, with the younger writers, I tell them to pretend like you're a gardener. So sometimes when you plant that seed, it overgrows sometimes, and you have to prune it back. And you have to be able to notice that that's where that's going, and you have to say, all right, well, or in that script writing, where am I at? I'm too close to this trilogy, before I need it to be. So be a gardener, sometimes learn to prune some of your stuff.
And other times encourage the growth. Michael, you have a thought on that before I go to Scribblers?
Yeah, I think that's an instance where your structure is going to determine a little bit of how you present this story, because it's in the format of a movie. You got to keep in mind that that minute length. So it's gonna be a blend of either cutting it or editing. And maybe getting someone you trust involved to read it and see how that experience plays, just as a script.
let's let Aaron give his thoughts here on worried it could derail everything.
Okay, well, the thing that I looked at was, especially since he mentioned movies, there's two great examples of where this goes, one in each direction. Lord of the Rings. When they originally pitched it, they were going to do. He pitched it as 2 movies because he didn't think he could get 3 approved. But for that one, you really need 3. And then they did The Hobbit, and they broke this small ass book into 3 movies,
Right.
adding all this other extraneous stuff, where it really would have been better as 2. But trying to find that good dividing line in between it. But one of the authors I read, Jim Butcher with the Dresden Files, he's been on hiatus for about 3 years or so now. He's releasing his latest book like next month. But when he was writing it, he realized he had 2 interlocked threads there, so he split it into 2 books, and they're coming out back to back.
Nice.
So it's always a good idea to look at, okay, is this project distinct? Or do I need to break it into more distinct projects and make them fit our timelines or things like that? Or have I just added so much fluff that I need to edit it down and maybe compress it? Because sometimes that happens too. I tend to write pretty clean. I'm editing down 10% and up 5%, so I can end up about the same where I am. I know other folks that a third of it just gets nope, gone, chuffa, 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 as I believe it's Bruce Willis says when he's like, why am I going to film a scene we're going to freaking just yank out anyway?
John?
Well, and that's the thing with the person that controls the purse strings, especially with film and stuff like that, is that they're going to evaluate how much it's going to cost to do said scene, and sometimes they're just going to tell you that we can't do that. If you can use this other part here, and then the rest is going to go away, because they're really going to evaluate how much capital they have to spend on things, and how many resources they can put towards it.
And I'm going to jump over to Scribbler's comment here. Underwriting, meaning just concentrate on the stage direction and dialogue. This will free you up to do multiple directions for the plot without crafting perfect prose. You could go down more rabbit holes without the heavy lifting to write perfectly. Anybody have some thoughts on that? And the original question to tie in underwriting that I asked him to define is, would underwriting be off time? Okay, that's not really a question, but go ahead.
I think that might be a good way to do it. I would say that's a form of, that's kind of a nice synthesis of planning and pantsing. You're pantsing the parts that you know, so you're letting that faucet flow. And then later on, you're going to build upon that structure that you just built, and so that becomes the plan. Now that here's this schematic that we're going to go in and get real fine with it and add those details. So I think that's good, and I know lots of people who have done that, and sometimes when something's really flowing, your speed is actually going to like sort of create that phenomenon. And then you might have to and then you
go on, Michael.
Yeah, and then you end up doing that anyway. So yeah, do whatever feels natural at the time. Don't worry about it, don't limit yourself, don't compromise your speed, and get down whatever's coming to you.
See, I have a comment on this one. And that relates right back to that kind of outline thing that I did, which was just a couple words per chapter to give me that direction for the flow. But if you watch me on my live writing streams, I'm quite often like, I have no idea to write. So I stop talking, I take a moment to kind of clear my head and breathe, and then I just start writing whatever comes out. Because I know that's the signpost pointing in that direction. And this is I laid down the stage direction, not necessarily dialogue unless if it's a certain conversation that has to happen, but it allows me to go down these rabbit holes and run in these other directions that work and allow the creativity to flow. And when it went off the original plan, that was okay, because that was just a plan, and I couldn't see around the corner into Act 3 and leading into it when I'm putting down this base structure. So it's good to be flexible, even with that structure and that planning, to go ahead and change your plan and work with what's working and flowing. Yeah. Anybody else have some thoughts on this?
Now, on your last comment, about not being able to see into Act 3, that was one of the problems I ran into with Politicus, which is the second book of Persona non grata. Kind of wrote myself into a corner. I knew where I wanted to be.
If I can interrupt real quick, I want to give a quick welcome to, this name, Haralganarg. Haralganarg. Here's you. Thanks for the follow. Carry on, Erin.
Hey. It's a good Viking
name. It was one of those, I got myself where I wanted to be in the middle of Act 2, and I knew where I had to be at the end of Act 3, but trying to get those points back together, I just deadlocked, which is a problem. As Travis will say, just imagine you got D&D characters. How are they going to shake things up? But I'm like, okay, you know what? We're going to shelf the project for a little bit and revisit other stuff. And I'm like, okay, and that's how I ended up here. So the plans can sometimes go off the rail, leading to other things in real life as well.
John, by the way, Haralganarg is a friend of yours, he says, or she says.
Oh.
So do you know who they are?
Might be Tom or Gary.
There you go. Well, welcome to whichever one you are. Tempe, do you have some thoughts on this, where you have this loose structure and it changes in the middle? And
just get it all down. You can go back and change it out later. You can change your mind. Just get it. The main thing is to get it down, and then you can work with it from there.
And if you can get it down and get it funky at the same time, even better.
Get down and get funky.
That's right.
Yeah, Mike. I like something that Tempe said earlier about characters going away that you don't expect, and it's kind of like a first impression of a person, and just like when you get to know a person in real life, when you spend a lot of time writing a character, they will develop before your eyes, and then you'll realize that they may be different, or they may go down a different path than you once expected, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I've changed a couple of. I've got a historical figure in one of my books that died when he died. I changed the death, and I've changed it up, and I've changed his personality. And when book 6 comes out, there's going to be a whole new side of him.
Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun, because there's some changes have happened, and it's going to get really interesting. So it's fun to be able to play with stuff like that. And see those characters, how they can change, and who was once a really, really good person, because they've fallen in love or because they've experienced something else, they've kind of started going down that hill, a different way, and it's fun to play with it. Those turn out to be my favorite characters a lot of the time.
So let's see, what notes do I have here that I can run us in a different direction? I'll just start at the top.
Say something.
I'm sorry, what?
It's not that big.
No, go ahead.
Something Tempe had mentioned, though, adding an element that makes a character act completely different. The first thing that popped to mind is Batman. Okay? Oh. Batman, dark, brooding. And then they introduce Robin. And he takes him on as a ward. That is something that Batman would never do, but Bruce Wayne does, and it changes all that dynamic, which the dynamic do, strangely enough. And it's like, okay, would Batman ever put somebody else in the same position that he did? No. But he... Go ahead, Trev.
Teen Titans on the DC thing had a very interesting take on this.
Because I haven't seen it yet.
It's Robin after he was Robin, when he's left Batman and they've gone his own way, and it has a very interesting psychological take where Dick Grayson is like, he was making me into him, he was making me a weapon. This was not an altruistic move. He was creating the next generation of weapon, and it broke me psychologically. Which doesn't take away what you were saying, but this is just an interesting new spin 5 years later.
Well, no, and that's what I love about adaptations, is the fact that we can have the same story told in a different way or with a different perspective. You see it all the time with anime and stuff like that. But hell, even the Teen Titans cartoon going to Teen Titans Go.
Very different.
It's the same story, but man, is it twisted.
And to the live action is just a much more adult darker version. It's pretty damn well done. Yeah, Tempe.
What you got, Tim?
Can I just say yay for the Snyder's Cut coming out on DC Justice League?
Is
Have
it
you
finally
seen
coming
that?
out?
They are coming out with it. They announced they were coming out with the Snyder's Cut, so it'll be interesting to see the darker side of Justice League.
I hope
No,
so.
no.
And more Henry Cavill.
That said, for those that are interesting, if you want to see something absurdist, take a look at the Cat's butthole cut, where they. John's noping out.
I watched this last week.
Yeah, the play The Cats.
Just so you know,
or
it's not just buttholes.
No, it is not. But the fact that you can do things absurd like that and change things up and change the tone if you need to, even in a small portion.
Moving us into another structure or planning thing, even if you're a pantser writer, let's talk about scheduling. Let's talk about setting aside the time to do your craft, because that is part of planning and structure. Even if you don't plan and structure your story, this is something I personally talk about a lot and encourage a lot. Setting aside that time to do your art, your craft, and hone your skills. Tempe, you want to start?
My time is usually from 8, 9 o'clock at night till about 3 in the morning, and I've just gotten in a habit of doing that. Now I do some once in a while in the afternoon if I'm not working on, or not doing prop work or something like that. If I'm just hanging out and nothing else to do, I will do it. But usually 8, 9 o'clock at night till 3 a.m. is my time to work. Which and I sleep. I don't lie. I'll sleep till 11 or noon because I'm up all night working, and it takes me a while to wind down once I start. Once I stop working. So, but yeah, it's that's my time. That's when it's quiet for me. That's when I can turn on nonsense stuff on TV in the background and just work completely through. So.
I saw it like everybody raise a hand. Everybody has thoughts on this.
Well, really quick, you folks out there might want to put into the chat, the projects and stuff that you're working on in your books and that type of stuff. Take advantage. This is some time that you have to do so.
Yeah, and if I may, this also ties into scheduling, and Erin has mentioned it, whether dieting or whatever. It also creates, what's the word, Erin?
Feedback loop? Or
No.
freaking,
When you're responsible
incentive?
for... What?
Incentive?
No.
It's a habit. It becomes a habit where it's a formed habit where after so many weeks you automatically do it.
All
22
that,
days.
but when you tell other people you're doing this, you're now expected to do it, and it creates...
Oh, you get a dopamine hit.
No, not dopamine. The where you have to do it. You're now responsible for that. People have an expectation. There's a word.
Bullshit.
Do we... Really? We'll figure it out. I'll shout it out in
A
like...
room full of writers and we can't figure out one word.
Well, there are 30,000 of them in the English language. How are we supposed to pick just one?
It's essentially responsibility.
Accountability.
Accountability.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Okay.
Yay, Michael! You can...
It's like that. Okay, but yeah, accountability, letting people know I'm doing this. So by John saying put this in chat, it creates an accountability for you because now there's an expectation level. So who else had something about scheduling? Erin, Michael, Erin?
Big thing is deadlines, okay? Because some things are on a hard deadline. And I'm sure John's seen this, where, hey, you've got the summer special, friggin' it comes out on June 1. We have to have these pages in, not June 1, but like May or April or whatnot, so that it could go through all that process. On the technical writing side, we have software release dates, and we're doing all the beta stuff all the way up to that, and then you can't release it after because they don't know how to use it. So you have to get it all put in there, and then you got to kind of reverse plan it out. And you go, okay, hey, I've got my real job, because all of us do. And you go, okay, well, 8 hours of that is gone. I have to sleep, so there's 3 hours or 4 hours gone.
Sleep is overrated, Erin.
Well, no, but the drinking is not. That's 5 hours. So there's 16 hours of the day just gone. Not to mention, the wife wants you to spend time with her, but it's you got commitments that come into play in addition to this, and you're going, okay, well, it's going to take me 40 hours of concentrated effort, and I can dedicate 1 hour a day. Okay, 40 days, I can do that. Now, double that and then triple that on top of it and go, okay, this is what my realistic timelines are to actually hit this deadline date.
The Scotty scenario from Star Trek.
Yeah.
Add times 3.
Michael?
Mm-hmm.
I like deadlines. I like having on the calendar. I'm like, okay, by this time I want to have this chapter done or this scene or whatever, so I can scratch it off. I like scratching things off. It's cathartic. But I'm also trying to implement more of a weekly schedule where I have my illustration day and then 3 straight writing days and then a business management day and then like social media and stuff like that, and then a flex day.
And then one day where you get to eat dinner, and then back to the schedule.
Yeah, and then I go and I dispense my protein bar, and then I shamble back to the back of my cave.
Like a gerbil.
Human kibble, sir. Human kibble.
This brings up, by the way, Ross just posted his schedule, and yeah, it's not the same as yours, but it has a similar feel. We schedule days, certain times to work on certain projects. Including planning a day of rest, which is a great idea. Don't forget to plan real life and social interaction, as Erin mentioned also. Now, let me ask you guys about deadlines. Now, if you're working in the comic book industry, there are deadlines. If you're working on a script and somebody has purchased that script, there are deadlines. If you have an agent or a publisher, there are deadlines. Now, as far as I know, we're all pretty much self-published, unless somebody has something they haven't told me. What about self-imposed deadlines? How's that work out for you guys? Do you set them? Do you stick to them? Do you suffer from them or flourish from them?
I fail constantly from them, sir. All the time.
Yeah.
Seriously?
No. Yeah. Persona non grata, friggin' released in 2016, I believe it was, and my goal was to release 1 book a year. It is now 2020, and as you can see, that is an unsuccessful deadline.
Maybe next week needs to be a 2-hour brainstorming session to get you out of your corner in book 2.
Oh, no, friggin', and don't get me wrong, I was writing today, I put down 1,000 words friggin' just today.
Well done.
But it's one of those...
Look at Tempe laugh at you. 1,000 words, peasant.
1,000 words? I did that on the shitter.
Ew. What would...
I did that in my sleep.
No, but yeah, no, it's one of those. You got to have skin in the game. You got to friggin' have some external type pressure pushing you for that, and it can be something as little as I can't do this until I do that. The reward sandwich, which works. It's psychologically proven to work. Like, oh, okay, I'm gonna do that, but I can't sit down and read a book until I've written.
This many
for
words.
an hour,
yeah,
or X number of words. Little things like, oh, okay, and I do this because I do the marathon running. I get medals for running the race. I don't get the medal unless I run the race. And that's that feedback reward, because you want that positive feedback. Because if you're just writing for yourself, yes, there's something to it, but man, getting a little friggin' material something with it makes it nice as well. Like, oh, okay, hey, once I get a chapter done, I'll buy myself a comic book. Or I'll run down and I'll visit Travis. Friggin' bullshit. We'll play Star Wars. Things like that.
So what about you guys and self-imposed deadlines?
My readers keep me on a deadline. Because as soon as one book's out, they're like, when's the next one coming out? When's the next? I get constant messages. When's the next one? And I've put 5 out since December of 2018. My goal was to put out 2, 3 a year. That slowed down a little bit because the convention scene has slowed down. But that's they push me to keep moving and keep going, which I have them written. I just haven't put them through the process yet.
Right.
I also have. I've put myself on a little deadline. I had a bunch of little things that needed to be done and cleaned up. And I made myself, over the past 2 weeks, stop and do those things. And I said I was not going to work on my fantasy piece anymore until everything else was behind me, and this was the only thing in front of me. So I've spent the past 2 weeks like nonstop just going through getting those little things done that I wanted to get done, and I finished them all. So I'm strictly back on this fantasy piece where I wanted to be, and I don't have anything else kind of holding me back, feeling like it's nagging in the back of my head.
Do you feel better having accomplished those, knocked them off your list?
Yeah, absolutely. It's stuff I've been wanting to do for a while, and I had just kind of been putting it off, and I'm like, enough. I'm home. I'm stuck at home. I don't have anything else to do. Let's just finish it. Let's wipe it off, clean the table, be done with it, and then move to this next piece that I want to get, I wanted to get finished. So
this is something I'll point out to the viewers or listeners. Michael earlier mentioned making lists, crossing off the list. Tempe talking about this. There is that dopamine rush, that sense of accomplishment when you complete these things, even going back and after the edit, cleaning up those little things, tying off loose ends, just knocking those things off your list. I have a few to do in a book that I recently wrote that is up for editing at this point in time. It's really worth it to go do it, because instead of it being a week-long, month-long, or multi-month-long project, it is literally a day or a week to do a number of things. So you get this sense of accomplishment multiple times in a short period of time, and it allows you to get that oomph back into your step when you sit back in your creative chair to do your next bit. So what about John? I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say I'm very much the type of person that if I've got something lingering on my plate, I will not stop until it's done. I mean, I won't take a day off. I won't stop and go to Home Goods. I barely stop to eat. If it's something that I'm working on and I want to get it done, it nags in the back of my head until it's done. So I'm better off just to do it and be done with it. And then I'm able to move on. So.
Michael, John, self-imposed schedules, the deadlines?
So on the other aspect of the dopamine and the sense of accomplishment to continue to push you along, mentorship is also there for the times that, you have setbacks. And you can't allow setbacks to continue to be to grow and become an excuse then. So a mentor's there to also, even in the bad times, push you along with these things. To the con scene, I mean, us setting those up, I mean, obviously there's going to be setbacks sometimes, but with schedules, like up until, the last possible minute when it was turned off, I mean, we had met all our goals and all the things we wanted to do for that particular convention. We had everything already done. So that's back to that part of the scheduling. But don't allow setbacks sometimes to become the constant thing that keeps you from progressing. Go to your mentor, say, hey, look, if you don't tell them that you're having an issue with it, then they can't help you. I mean, that's as simple as it is. Or on the extremes aspect of it, a coach or a publisher or your agent, they're there to make sure that you're producing. So they should be constantly on you. Hey, where's this at? You said you were going to have it for me. So.
And if I may add something to what John's saying there, here on the show, when I'm talking to my viewers or calling Erin to talk about something or whatever, in a mentorship role, you often teach what you're focused on right now, what you need to learn. And that is a great thing when you come to somebody to teach them something but you want to learn more. By sharing it with somebody who's still learning that, you do grow. You do get something out of it, even if it's feedback of another point of view, that you forgot how it works at certain points in time, and it's invaluable. Michael, did you have some thoughts about self-imposed deadlines?
Yeah, it's hard. it's hard to be mean to yourself. To be that mean looming boss that gets you to get stuff done. But it is important, and I think that lists help. Schedule helps a lot, and sometimes like writing a log of what you've done, that helps too. That's kind of like a reverse list. So instead of crossing stuff on, you're putting stuff down and then seeing that stack up. It's like, okay, I don't feel so bad. I did quite a bit today. and you can say stuff like that. But yeah, and I think John's right about getting other people involved where they can be. I quite like sending something off to the editor and then working on something else, because it's so satisfying to know that out in the ether it's being worked on, and that satisfies the part of my brain that needs productivity. So
yeah, John.
Yeah.
And there's also software and programs out there that also help with your productivity and give you reminders. And we use Slack, so that's for organization within the company, but it gives you resources to go in and use. So I always recommend it, and a lot of writers groups and stuff, or like here, there's resources and stuff for you to go out and use them. So
definitely, it's accountability, letting people know you're doing what you're doing with your self-imposed, because then you get excitement from other people, whether it's readers like Tempe, family support, or just other writers asking how it's doing, especially when it's that positive reinforcement where, sure, you feel a little bummed that you didn't do what they expected, but if you twist it right in your head, it's a booster rocket behind you that gives you that little extra oomph to sit down and do what you need to do. Erin, did you just raise your hand?
I did, but Michael did right before me, so let's let him go first.
Go ahead, Michael.
I just like to say that this show is a great example of a way to help us stay on track and stay accountable and stuff. It's like going through a Hot Wheels track with those spinning wheels, and it shoots you out on your productive inspiration path.
Good comparison. Bottom line, it all boils down to you, though. You're the only one that can sit down and do it for you.
Yep.
Erin, what were you going to say?
I actually got two things, one off of John's and one off of yours. When I was doing all the leadership stuff, I've got a master's in leadership. One of the things they showed us was the rule of 33%. And the idea is that you spend time with your peers, about a third of it, people that are on the same level as you, about a third of your time with people that are ahead of you, those mentors, like John has mentioned, and then a third of the time with people that you are going to mentor. So what it does is the people ahead of you show you what's possible. You show other people what's possible. And this works across the martial arts industry and doctors. Doctors have got a kind of a rule of watch once, do once, teach once. And it reinforces all those kind of lessons there to where, how do you do this? Oh, okay, you do it this way. I'm an HVAC technician, electrician, stuff like that. And when I went over to Travis, I'm like, oh, no, this is what we're doing here. And he's seen it once. He'll be able to do it once, probably under supervision, and then he'll be able to teach it. Hey, he's hung fans before. He's kind of got this. But the other thing I had was the support network, which kind of ties back in there. And I work at a jail. And one of the things that I got a couple worker inmates that I talked to. And the big thing that we see a lot of is drugs, okay? Well, one of the things that I mentioned to one of the guys was, hey, look, if grandma breaks her hip, they give her oxycodone, which is heroin. She's going to be off of it in 6 weeks as soon as her hips heal, because she's got a support network. Whereas people that don't have that support network, they're the ones that are on those drugs forever until they hit rock bottom. So anytime you want to advance or get back to the level, you want to have a network of people surrounding you.
So are you saying our support network, because writing is like heroin, it'll help us get off writing?
Yes. I really said exactly that, sir.
Writers Anonymous.
Yeah, Tempe.
I don't know about the rest of you, but my boss is a bitch.
That's right.
She's always hammering me to work.
Phrasing.
We're gonna take a hey now. How you doing? We're going to take a moment here to reintroduce ourselves, because we're halfway through the 2-hour show, and this will also let everybody sneak off one at a time if they need to get a refill and everything, which I will in a moment. But first, I'll let everybody know I'm Travis Sivart. I'm host of Travis Tavern Talk here at twitch.tv/Travis Tavern Talk, which if you're listening on podcast, feel free to join us live on Saturday nights for this show, and check out the channel for other content. The book I'm currently working on is book 2 of this, which is Journal of a Stranger, Diary of the Time Traveler, Jack Tucker, as he explores 35,000 years of time, past, present, and future. And book 2 goes back to his beginnings when he had his first time travel, but it's all done in retrospect as he is far beyond that moment and writing it down in the past. And let's start with Tempe.
I'm Tempe Wade. I'm the author of the Timely Revolution book series, which is a Revolutionary War time travel adventure series. And I'm also in the middle of working on a nice little fantasy piece that we'll get into a little bit later.
Michael.
My name's Michael Thompson. I'm an author and illustrator. One of my books is World of the Orb. It's a portal fantasy adventure about two best pals on a field trip to the Museum of Natural History. They sneak away from the group, break the one rule, and end up lost in this alternate world and having to go on a treasure hunt to find Earth again.
The moral of the story, don't touch your balls. John?
John. Conquest Publishing.
I'm going to get a drink.
Check us out at conquestuniverse.com. We are a mentoring program. If you want to join in what we do, there's plenty of links on the website. And we have a sample showed a little earlier.
Nice. Good there. Very nice. And who drew that one?
Casey's doing the pencils on this.
Very good.
Casey Pollard.
There you go. And Erin.
Hi, I'm Erin Kennedy, author of Persona Non Grata.
Thank you, Tempe.
Part of the Ships of Valor series. Currently working on the Icarus Black series, was going to be a young adult series, about 9 books long. I've been a technical writer for about 25 years, been published in the Army Times, NCO Journal, and that's me.
Here's the next topic I want to throw at our feet. And if I step away when Michael steps back, somebody repeat the concept for him. So going on pantsing, even you're a total pantser, once you've written one book, you now have a structure. You have a plan of some sort. So when you're writing book 2, you're building on something else. Yeah, you could totally jump off, but if you go to brand new characters, brand new world or place or location, it's not really a continuation at that point in time unless you bring it back to join. So I want to talk about planning the next project after the first, even if you're a pantser, and how you put them together or what influence, blah, 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 anything across the board there. Anybody want to start? John?
So, obviously series, comics, again, everything's already planned out per se, but you're given general goals, usually by the company that's doing it. Well, for us, we get to pick what our goals are. So we will sit down and we'll go, all right, well, starting at the beginning, we know that let's take, for example, Emissary Wars. The UN had decided that the superheroes are going to take over the world. Well, we've set up a structure where other writers can come in and write stories within our universe, so it's easy to plug things in. I can pants all day long with that story because that's what the title was designed to do, was it to allow pantsing. Of all things, we want, Mercedes Lackey to come in. We want Professor DeMeo, he was on watching earlier. I want any of the writers here to be able to come in and just write a story, and we'll illustrate it within that particular structure of the book. It's set up to be the ultimate pantsing book for superheroes. Other ones where we're a little bit more bound by what we were given. So with Mercedes Lackey, I mean, we've got White Bird, which, it ends after that particular story. But another one's called Valtrest. It's about a concert pianist. Well, we've noticed that there's a connecting thread amongst all the stories. So we proposed to her, can we continue on with these people? So right now we kind of have to wait because it's not our intellectual property. But once we have that, then we'll develop those particular stories past those particular things. But I like that we purposely designed something that pantsing is absolutely something that's required for it to grow. and to bring more people in to work in the industry per se, or to work on that particular project. And other things are a little bit more structured. We also tend, since we have more open projects, sometimes things just, with pantsing, go in a direction, as we talked about earlier, that we need to develop a little bit more. In Tether, we have a psychiatrist that goes back in time with the group, but he starts defining how this alien race is a bunch of conniving liars, and he basically takes. So we're researching psychology and how they apply it to a person, but we're applying it to a whole race of people, and and he narrates and stuff as they're finding out more clues and stuff during the story. So we get to. At first, we were just going to have him say a couple words, and that was going to be it. And then we'll, really we can kind of take this in a long way to more develop how conniving this alien race actually is, because it's harvesting humans' creativity for weapons in the future. They keep on sending humanity back in time over and over and over again to develop more and more weapons for this alien race. And we don't know that it's happening until finally the twins figure it out. So but it's the detective story and figuring out that this alien race is using us. But that was part of the pantsing thing, was hey, it's pretty cool that we can take the psychological thing and apply it. So
Michael, just to catch you up, what the topic I threw in front of us is, even if you're totally the pantsing type of writer, which I'm guessing you were when you started World of the Orb, more so than planning, when you write a second book and you build on what you've already laid down, there has to be some sort of planning or structure to keep it a continuous continuity leveled story. So that's what we're talking about at this point in time. Now, before I toss it to you, Tempe or Erin, somebody got some thoughts on this?
With me, book 1 and book 2 are in the Timely Revolution series are two very different books. One is American Revolutionary War, heavily history based.
Mm-hmm.
The second one is very much fantasy based. They go to England, they go to Scotland. In the first book, she's thrown back in time. She has no answers for it. In book 2, she gets her answers, and they're two very, very different stories that just they're pulled together by that time travel strand. First one, she has no answers. Second, she gets her answers. It's history, fantasy, and then book 3 goes into, it combines the history and fantasy together. So there I had to have some resolution there, and I had to have an outline, sort of an outline there, but that's kind of the way I did it. Book 1 history, book 2 fantasy, book 3 blended the two together. So
Erin, do you have
Yep. One of the things I ran into was finished up Persona non grata, and once you've got that, it's bookend. It's a bookend novel, so it can either act as a standalone or it can act as part of a series, which is kind of nice. But when I started writing it, one of the things that I had constrained myself into was this thematic consistency. So Ari is the narrator of the novel. He's telling a story. He's telling a war story, is what's going on. So the second novel, when I did that, had to go maintain that kind of thematic consistency. Okay, hey, he talks like this, he does this. This is how the story kind of progresses, and it's on a set of rails that the reader may not necessarily be aware of, but I am stuck into. The classic 3-act play is how I designed the first one, so I go from there. Because if I change that up, it's not going to be the same type of story. And I'm sure you guys have seen it with other writers, to where, this doesn't feel like a such and such book because it's different. J.K. Rowling, when she did the Harry Potters, and then she released that other one, the wife just yelled "Cursed Child," but I was actually going to refer to her her straight fiction book that came out after that.
Oh yeah.
Right. Nobody remembers it because
She wrote it under a different name, right?
I believe so. Or Stephen King doing his, and he's like, okay, what have I got here? You got these aspects that you want to tie into, and it's heavily technical at that point. Yes, you're working on your creative side and all this, but you're trying to hit these beats in a specific way, so that it feels like the same kind of book.
Yeah.
Michael?
But
Oh, I'm sorry. Aaron, did you have
oh,
more?
no, just one quick. So you've already built the structure, so now you're pantsing inside the structure, and okay, well, I can't do that because of this constraint that I had before, or I can do this because I've already established everything that I need to in order to do this.
Yeah.
And little things like the narration style. Ari doesn't talk; he's telling the story. That is just it's a technique, but I can't have him talking in book 2 because now it's cross purpose.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
What about you, Michael?
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up because like Winslow 1 was very pantsed. I originally thought it was going to be a bunch of short stories, and it became a novella. And I found that clean arc throughout and how everything built upon each other. And I was like, okay, I see what this is. And I was constantly being surprised by it. And it was really, really cool. It was a neat, it came together in a real neat way. And now that I'm writing the sequel, there is a little bit more planning that goes into it. The research aspect, I guess, is a form of planning that's across both. But understanding the chronology, and I've talked about this in the previous episodes, but understanding the chronology of how things happen, because we spent a little bit more time in the past, and Erin, you've read it, and that like the middle of the book, there's this transition to something that Winslow did in his past. And we spent a lot of time. Yeah, we spent a lot of time with young Winslow in the second book, actually, and that was interesting. And there's these little moments, like even in the second chapter, within dialogue as he's telling the story of the second chapter, he mentions very briefly a time in his life that will be seen more fleshed out in the second book. But in the one, like in just a few words, I've locked myself into the type of ship that he's going to be on. And that's just something that he said. So I have the vision of what is happening at this point in Winslow's life, and I now consolidate that with what's been established in the existing canon. And so it is like it is interesting, but those moments do breed creativity, and that thus creates more moments that makes your story more specific and more engaging and unique.
Well, plot seeds.
Yeah.
And it's I talked about the X-Men, Chris Claremont. He was the master of a plot seed. He'd freaking have throwaway lines, and then he'd revisit it 10, 15 issues later, and then we'd go on to that journey, and then all of a sudden we're back to the main thread. But you're experiencing three or four chapter arcs, but it's all part of this major story that you're dealing with. What you have, Charles?
If I may, I have a lot to say about this. For a few reasons. First of all, I was trying to revive the age-old art of short story cycles, which if you think of the original Sherlock Holmes books, it's a series of short stories, but they're interconnected because they're mostly chronological, and they definitely flash back to the other ones or make mentions of other ones. And in my beginning of writing, I did a lot of short stories, and I liked certain characters, so I wrote more short stories about them. Eventually taking those and grouping them into one book, and then creating an arc through the whole book, even though it's individual short stories. Now, in my other series, such as Portals, and Journal of a Stranger, and Silver and Smith, I very much want them standalone books, but I want people to realize other things happen. There is a history here because there are other books, as well as the characters having a bigger picture for their full life that was never told. And as much as I love that, whenever you build something before, you have a certain kind of continuity, and you have to keep that continuity. Otherwise, you're breaking the world that you put them in, which, without a drastic change, an apocalyptic, personal or worldwide event, you can't shift too far away from your original continuity. So it's important to remember that. And also, I love dropping hints. You called them plot seeds there, Erin. Loose ends is another way of putting it. And these are threads that you could pull on for later stories, or to pull up side things, or whole misadventures. Now, in my Downfall series, which is epic fantasy, that one is very important to keep the structure and build on what I had previously. There is all kinds of... Thank you very much, Michael. There is all kinds of things there that are foreshadowed that can come into the next book or a few books down the road, depending how far the series goes. And I don't put a limit on my series. I don't want to tell somebody it's a trilogy. I want to see where it ends properly, which maybe it'll be book 2, maybe it'll be book 5. I don't actually expect to hit Robert Jordan level of 14 in a series, but you never know. And I'm not going to limit myself by putting that invisible cap, that glass ceiling, on my writing. So the continuity, it shouldn't be a restraint. Okay, Erin. Shouldn't be a restraint to you. It shouldn't lock you into something. It should be the impetus to the next thing. That thing that gives you the boost, that feeds your ideas, because now you have this whole background, or these characters with a history and a personality, that it gives you a more solid direction to go in without locking you in. Because there's nothing more fun than taking a character you love and turning it on your head. If you look at Empire Strikes Back, when Luke had his hand cut off after confronting the surprise, his father, this turned the whole story upside down and gave you a whole new direction you can go into, but it still maintained the continuity. I think that's pretty much all I had without just meandering. Your friend Tom there, John, says, my first book was a standalone, and I've been banging my head against various attempts on a second one. I tried to pull him out a little more with House So. Says, first one was a historical fantasy on the Vikings. I didn't want to build a multi-book plot structure. So, anybody have some thoughts or advice to help him out? Michael?
Well, it may just be meant to be one book, and that could be if nothing's coming through. But if something is coming through, then maybe work on that scene, and then see where that takes you. So if you do have like that little story seed, then plant that and then just work on that.
To build on Michael, and Michael, feel free to yank it back from me after this. With that seed could be one character, even if it was a secondary or a tertiary character, or it could just be the world. It could be the neighboring village. If you've completed that story, as Michael has just mentioned, there's nothing wrong if there's something you love that you want to write. Find out what that thing is that's pulling you to write about it again, and focus on that. So don't worry about changing characters or villages or even moving forward 30 years or 300 years or whatever. You can still use that as your core launching point. So, as I said before, when building book 2, it doesn't have to be book 2. It could be the same world. It could be an offshoot, a spin-off, if you will. Allow it to be your impetus, not your restraint. Erin?
On that note, you've got writers that we've all read, and one of the things is like your Stephen Kings or your Dean Koontzes or whatnot. They're never telling the same set of stories. I mean, you've got exceptions like Odd Thomas or The Stand, which goes across multiple books, but you've got this thematic consistency. You read them because you like the guys, or like the style in which they write. So it's okay to just, all right, well, I'm going to tell another story, and it may be in the same universe, but it doesn't have to be the same characters. Now, sometimes you got people that are reading just for those characters. Your Jim Butcher, the Dresden Files. You're reading it because you want to know about Dresden. But I wanted to go back to a couple things Travis had said.
And
like
then
trilogy,
pass it to Tempe when you're done. I see her holding
absolutely.
a pen.
You talked about, I don't want to constrain myself to a trilogy. A guy named Christopher Paolini, the Aragon series. Great books, horrible movie. He had originally planned it as a trilogy, and then had it listed on the book covers that way for the first two. And he listed on the book covers for the first two books, and then book three, all of a sudden, oh, nope, we got 4 books because it got out of control.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
Also, I understand with him, when the first book went so well, they tied him into a trilogy contract.
Interesting.
And he kind of ran out of material and didn't know where to go with it, which is why a lot of people feel as they went on, they kind of went, But
he definitely wrote himself into a corner in a couple ways on that one, because he set up the villain at a certain power that he would never be able to reach as the hero, which was one of the problems. But I want to hit your point on the continuity as well. Harry Harrison wrote the Stainless Steel Rat series, and in reality, it's 2 distinct series. You've got the young Stainless Steel Rat, and then you've got the older Stainless Steel Rat that are going on. So I don't know necessarily which one was written first. I didn't look up the publications, but it's the same character 30 years separate in their life. So you got this consistent continuity that links the two. They're the same guy, one's older, one's younger. And we see his birth and we see his final mission, which is kind of cool.
Tempe?
Well, there's always the next generation.
Right.
You can always write about kids, the grandkids, or whatever, and just use one sentence to tie it back, like great-great-grandpa such and such or something like that. It can be a completely different story. It can be a very different world if it's a few hundred years down the line or whatever. And again, if you've got that secondary character where somebody's just mentioned, like a kid who's a pickpocket for example, you can always plug along on that and pull a story out of that line and just connect it back. It does. You don't need much to pull it back in and add it to that series. And as Mike said, it very well may be just a 1-book story, because a lot of good stories are just 1-book stories.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just take that and you move on to something else from there.
John, you have some thoughts on this?
So Tom with Devour the Gods, he's a history professor. The book is very has a lot of history and stuff and a lot of things that can move forward. But you have to decide that you want to do the second book. That is the key thing first. Tom's would be relatively easy, just extrapolate out history to another time period. You've already set, and you have to look at the genre of the book and kind of the structure that it is. And sometimes there are historical extrapolations, just like with Tempe, on a particular thing. So what would happen if this happened? But the key thing first is you want to have another book to continue from that one, or just pick something else to write and go on your way.
Which, by the way, I took a peek at the book. He dropped a link in chat, and it looks very interesting. And I think even if you totally dropped whatever you wrote in that first one and just continued the concept somewhere else or somewhen else, I think it's a good concept.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's a history thing, pick an item. Maybe it's a historical item and tell the backstory on that. That would be a way to roll with it.
That's true. You can go back.
Yeah, and tell that side of the story. And, that can pull out a whole nother world right there and a whole nother set of books. You can pull a whole set of books off of one item.
By the way, his book is Vikings Going to North America, and kind of an alternate history from the glance I took, because I'm running a stream, so I'm not necessarily digging into it. But you could take that same concept and move it to Africa in the same time period, or India, or China. There's all kinds of things you can do. But like John said, and as I mentioned before, find the thread you want to pull on. And if one's not there, don't force it. Don't make it be written if it's not the story you have in your heart, in your head, in your blood. Yeah, John.
And there's a whole genre about that, alternate timeline histories and stuff that a lot of writers right within that.
Like Tempe.
As I said before, I mean, one of our books is I mean, it is designed for pantsing and stuff to happen because we want people to join in for stuff. Some books aren't designed for that. I mean, it's that project and, you know, off it goes because its structure is within a certain thing. So.
Michael.
Yeah, it may be a situation where you're in this planning mode, but maybe you should shift to a pantsing mode and just start and then see what happens.
That's a great idea. Let your inspiration
Tempe
inspire you.
That great section. We got a sneak peek at the fantasy story, and that just sort of was a scene that came through, right? And then you're just following that thread and seeing where that goes.
Exactly.
Aaron?
In that segue kind of thing, there's a couple great book series out there, and friggin' John, Travis, and I are probably old enough to remember it. I know Tempe's only like 23, and Michael's
24.
24. I'm sorry, that's right. You just had your birthday.
That's right.
James Clavell wrote the Shogun series, which was a mini series and big at the time. But he also did Taipei. He did friggin' Gaijin. He did all these other books, which he picked a story in this world and told it to its completion, and then he moved off to somewhere else and did the same kind of thing. He created this thematic type universe. The other one that came to mind was Bernard Cornwell. He wrote the Sharps series, Sharps Rifle, Sharps Regiment, and so forth, but he does historical fiction. And he does a great job of it because he completed the Sharp story and he moved on to another section. And I think it was Vikings or the Norse, and he told a story along that lines. But each thing was kind of distinct in its own right. What you got, John?
And some writers are very happy with sticking with a particular thing, Louis L'Amour, you know, Western, that type of thing. He said, I have no reason to do other stuff because people love this. So.
Right.
Oh, Lester Dent, who we mentioned before, friggin' he wrote pulp. 6,000 word friggin' pulp stories that just were released in magazines, and he said he wrote like 500 best-selling. Always got paid on them was the deal.
Which is more than I can say for some of my work.
Oh yeah.
I have kind of a one-off comment which you guys may or may not build on. When it comes to pantsing, I feel it's the wrong way. If you're looking for a publisher or an agent, don't approach them with the pantsing thing. A lot of this relates to what John says when people are like, I have an idea in my head. Well, great. Why don't you put it down and then we can talk? If you are looking for a traditional publisher or agent, have something written down. Have it in the works or complete it if you can before you go to them with this idea. It doesn't have to be completed, but it sure the hell helps. John?
A lot of the times they'll have those particular things, and what they're really looking for is a lot of help with their particular. They don't want to do the heavy lifting and the work involved with it. They just want to, here's my cool idea. Oh, you write this. You know, it's like, it doesn't work that way.
I'm pretty sure all of us have dealt with somebody approaching us with that. I've written a book, really where you're at. Well, I'm not really, it's not really written. Well, are you halfway through? Well, I have an idea. And then you're like, so you haven't written a book. Aaron, what were you going to say?
And I haven't hit this in 3 weeks, which is surprising. Business plan. If you are going to approach somebody else with something, it is a business plan. You are trying to, pardon me, I've got a cat that's running by. That's Noah. He's about 16 pounds and missing a few teeth. Hey, John, I'd like you to take a look at this. Oh, and what is this? This is my business plan as it relates to a book. Here's all the planning I've done. Here's where I want to go with it. Can you review it for me? Sure, you can ask for help on that aspect of it, because we're doing this as a business. We're small business owners in that own realm, and there's nothing wrong with somebody asking us for advice, but don't expect us to do it for you.
Right, and I think that's the bottom line. John?
The key thing is brainstorming and that business plan are two separate things. One's an idea and a concept, and then collaboration with the brainstorming helps develop it a little bit more and give it a direction to go in. And the other part's the work part. So,
Michael?
Yeah, the planning falls into the sort of concrete set of things, like your outline and this is what I have established. This is where I want to go, and the pantsing is the magical part of writing. And when you want to involve someone business wise, they're like, well, that sounds great, but it's kind of like having a resume, I guess. You want something that you can look at, or a portfolio, or a pitch, or something that they can sink their teeth into, so you can get what you've got in their head.
John?
Yeah, John.
So, like with our role-playing game, pantsing is developing what I tell you to make for templates and character abilities and stuff that are within the book. You pants yourself off. I've given you the topic. This is what I want.
It's a writing prompt.
So you come back with me with that template or that new skill set or whatever I task you with doing. Then you come back with me, and this is what I've come up with. And that's also when your editor or somebody else is going to say, all right, this is where we need to clean this up and move this, and this is useful.
Erin?
I got two things. One, we cannot understate what Michael said. The magic is in the pants. Okay?
Isn't that always the case?
Yes.
Doing it right.
Yes, it is. But I want to hit on what John had mentioned about the RPGs. We play a game every Sunday night. Travis, John, myself, and a couple others. We do Stealing for Survival. Last week was Star Wars. We're doing D&D tomorrow, 8 p.m. Follow, like, and subscribe, and all that stuff. But as a DM or a GM, we're planning. And it can be just a couple, 3 notes. The players are pantsing, and they're doing that. And then you get those of us with multiple personality disorder are doing that inside our heads as a book. We're friggin' creating these characters, and they're running off the rails inside this plan that we've created. John.
So, and playtesting is pantsing. I mean, after we got the product ready, now it's playtesting.
Yeah, you've done the planning and the structure and all that, and now it's time to break
this
it.
Is broken right here.
Yep, players are gonna break it.
So, yeah, playtesting is pantsing.
Now, this is kind of a closing thought, but it can also be the opening to a whole topic here. Here's what I'm going to suggest, guys. Pantsing and planning, and it's your personal balance. Whether that's a 90-10 split or a 50-50 split or anywhere between. I don't recommend going over 90-10, but if it works for you, it works for you. A combination of the two, even if all of your planning is, I have an idea, and you go. If all of your pantsing is, I have this super tight plot structure with the beats laid out and points that I'm just connecting dots and I'm writing from point A to B, then go. But I do feel most writing, even technical writing, is a little of both.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, Michael Crichton, okay, when he was live, he would do 2-3 months of research at the beginning, and then write the book over a weekend.
Of course, that was before Google, where he could spend 3 days researching and write the book over a weekend.
Before Wikipedia.
Yeah.
But yeah, he would do that. And then he wrote these great novels. Friggin' your Jurassic Park 2, which was not related to the movie.
No, not at all. But still a good book. And Prey was a good book. Sphere was a good book. Congo,
Rising Sun.
I don't know if I'd read Rising Sun, but I've definitely enjoyed at least a half dozen of his books immensely.
Oh yeah, and the movies that friggin' was spun off of them.
If you don't take them as the book, yes. Yeah, the movies are very different from the book, at least so far.
Well, I mean, probably the closest one was the Great Train Robbery, which is historical fiction. But he's got these great characters, these things going on, but he's doing all this planning at the front, and then he lets his pantsing gene go wild to tell a great story. Because we can relay facts all day long, but you've got to get people to actually read it. On the technical side, it's dry.
John, do you read very much?
As much as I can, but not recently.
If you can grab Michael Crichton's book Prey, it goes into nanotechnology, and I felt it was a really great level of technobabble versus story, where he gave you enough that you felt like it had scientific research without dumping it on you. Even if you find an audiobook and play it in the store, pausing it when people come in, I think talking about your quantum entanglement conundrum of wanting to give so much, I think that's a great kind of just baseline guideline of here's a very technical issue where he gave enough but not too much. Yeah, Erin.
On that, I did a beta read for a buddy of mine, and he had put a book down on paper, and he had a book, but it was kind of a stream of consciousness one, like Bright Lights, Big City. But the technobabble made it hard to read because you're just going, okay, where's the story? Because he would have 3 pages of technobabble to a paragraph of story moving forward. And it wasn't that it wasn't interesting, it just made it harder to digest.
That'd be like Tempe giving us just a historical breakdown with a paragraph of a character, and then moving forward another historic regurgitation.
Right.
Yeah, my eyes glaze over with stuff like that, and everybody else's does too. You just have to, you've got to put just enough in there for the backstory and move along.
True. John?
So, and that's where I took a step back, is because at one time, basically just asked, why are these aliens even doing this?
Fair answer. Fair question.
It was a convoluted. It was cool that we wanted it to do something, but it didn't make any sense that they would go to all these lengths to do it. And now there's a reason why they would go to the lengths to do it.
There is
sometimes it took, stepping back a little bit from it and say, oh, too much on that. Let's just do this part. So,
Erin, and then pass it to me.
Okay. He mentions why would the aliens even do this? Heinlein mentions it once, but if you go back and watch the miniseries V, the 80s, 90s one, and then the current one, why did they come to Earth? Why did they want to help out the people? Oh, they want to steal water. But Heinlein gets into it is like, hey, any nutrient, mineral resource that you want to find, it's going to be easier to find out in space. So you got to come up with a reason why they're doing this. Why fight a gravity well if you don't have to? So there's got to be a logical consistency to your villains as well, even if they're nuts. The Joker is batshit insane, but we always know why he's doing it. It's some big joke that only he gets. I'm going to pass it to Travis and back to you, John.
John, go ahead.
No, and that's why we had the aliens end up stealing something that's out of the norm. You can't. There's no creativity resource that they can go steal.
Was it Snickers bars?
Well, yeah, sometimes.
Okay.
When you're hangry and
Not you when you're hungry.
It turns out it's actually Mickey Mouse.
I have to say Mars bars are far superior to Snickers bars, but you can't find them anymore.
Oh, there goes that sponsor.
Never mind.
Now, I actually do have an alien race that threads throughout different series of mine. And it's one of those things that I had to find a better reason for them to being here. It actually started out as me wanting to link conspiracy theories together throughout history.
Right.
So I've linked multiple, probably a dozen different conspiracy theories together and tied them all back into this one species that is foreign to our world. And figured out why they came here initially, and what they are now in the current stories is actually a bastardization of what they were initially. It was changes they had to make genetically to themselves to acclimate. First, to communicate with what is the dominant intelligent species, humans, on this planet, and later as humans with their violent nature basically warred on them every time they presented themselves, how they had to change further and further, not just physically and genetically, but psychologically, and how they've become a broken species that is just now looking to destroy. How humans have created this downward spiral for them, and how some want to fix it, some humans want to fix it, but is this foreign species so far gone, there's no more way to bridge things. So
Nice.
yeah, give them something besides we need water, we need gold. It's
Yeah.
mine are actually
It's
trapped
good to-
here
it's good
from.
to figure that out.
Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, it's good to figure that out for yourself, even if it's not like directly spoken.
Yeah.
Because then you can at least like you can see like the motivation in their eyes. You know
Right.
what I mean?
And if you do reveal the motivation down the road, any kind of loyal reader or viewer or whatever will go, oh, they have
Yeah.
dropped hints about this the whole damn however long it's been. One
Yeah,
book or
that's-
20 books.
For sure. In I think the research episode we talked about like I always like the sense of discovery, and I think that's what you can build toward rather than the exposition dump or like the teaching paragraphs.
I agree. Michael?
Yeah.
Or, I'm sorry, John?
Oh yeah, and I mean that's what these sessions or these shows are great for, is that back to brainstorming. Sometimes you need a peer group to go, look, this is what I initially wanted to do with this. I want to change it to this. What do you guys think? And then everybody will go, well, how about this or how about this? And then, then you have to still decide which way is the right way. But these pantsing sessions, as we call them, are very helpful for those particular things. Sometimes when you're a plot, they can be strengthened. They really help out.
Now, let me do this. We got about 20 minutes left before we sign off from the rest of this, and we're going to keep on jabbering and whatnot, but I want to poke our viewers real quick and go, guys, this is one of those topics where it's not a tight topic. As Scribbler has done previously, as Ross has done previously, as Tom has done previously, this is a great topic to throw your questions in front of us. We're all happy, eager, if not excited and flattered to be able to give any point of view, opinion, or just lessons we've learned to help you guys on your journey. So if you have something, even if you feel it's unrelated, at this point in time, we're loose at the very end of this show, and we will find other things to talk about between all of us taking notes and our ramblings and normal. We'll find stuff. But if you guys have a question or a comment or a thought or just brainstorming is where I'm going now. How can we help you? If there's anything you've been kind of going, here's a great time to throw it out for us in the last few minutes. Erin?
Something I was thinking about, and this is probably a little bit meta, but on Amazon, especially Amazon Prime and things like that, you've got access to movies, and you've got access to a lot of bad movies.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Ice Pirates.
But it's right. There's these, and you can tell they were made over a weekend or a couple weeks by people that had a rough plan or a great pantsing session, and they turned it into a plan of some type, and you're like, why did I just waste 2 hours of my life on that? But the cool thing is you can take that as a learning experience and go, oh, okay, this is what I don't want to do. Everything's an object lesson of, okay, check, and wow. But there's also some great ones where they go, oh, okay, this is how a character would really react and how it would look on screen if I'm using these dialogue types. I think I've mentioned Saber Rain before. Friggin' watch it, just the first 15 minutes of it, and get that feel. Because that's what bad sci-fi looks like. I love the movie, because it's a dream, but do that. You had something, Trev?
Yeah, here's what I'm going to encourage folks. You learn by observing other people doing what you want to do. It's one way to learn, not the only way, but it's one way to learn. So if you want to be a writer, read. If you want to be a movie maker, watch movies. Good and bad. I'm going to use audiobooks as an example here, and I've talked to Erin and Michael about this extensively. I have listened to a lot of audiobooks over the past 12 months. And there's sometimes it's a crappy book with a good narrator. Other times it's a good book ruined by a bad narrator. But each one of them is worth listening to, at least till you get the lesson you can pull from that, which might be, as Erin just pointed out, what not to do. What not to do is a super valuable lesson. It's invaluable. Because by knowing what's bad out there, A, you might be able to write a bad story that is entertaining, thus twisting it to something good. This is why we have cult followings of things. John, I'll pass it to you in just a second, bud. Because I think I'm pretty much running out of steam on this. My point is, whatever you're into, don't necessarily shut it down immediately because it's bad. Once you realize it's bad and you're cringing and you hate it, give it a little bit more. Just to figure out exactly what is it that's bothering you. Then turn that shit off, put it down, whatever you got to do. And give me a second, Scribbler. I will answer your question. Let me give John a moment here to give his thoughts, and then we'll jump over to your question.
Well, back to the bad movies analogy. Well, at one time, somebody bought into that movie for whatever reason, and I think it's always important. Sometimes you can go back in and look at the original script, who was on the project, find out what went wrong with it.
Good
what
point,
caused
yeah.
it to go off the rails. I mean, sometimes, it's bought just because it's the producer's son that wants to redo Starsky and Hutch or whatever. So you can just ignore it. But sometimes, they bought into this. A lot of the Isaac Asimov movies are horrible.
Yes.
And they just are. But why? He's considered, a talented writer. I never thought that he was as great as people propped him up to be.
Agree. I think he was limited material out there, so he was the best that was around at the time.
Correct.
Groundbreaking.
Right.
He introduced new concepts that were out there, like Dune. Dune's a dry ass book.
Well, that's not. Somebody else. Yeah,
No.
I don't need 20 pages to tell me that the guy walked over to the tree and took a leak. It's just. Anyways.
But the magic is in the pants.
But
If I can answer,
As it always is.
back to the pants.
I'm going to read Scribbler's question, which this is an age-old question. And I think we'll have a lot of opinions and run the show out on this question. How, as writers, can we create it as a creative community that works together rather than working in a solitary environment?
You're looking at it.
Yeah. That's the short answer. Right here, right now. You get together, you discuss ideas, you stir it up, you go do your thing. Come back, compare notes, rinse and repeat. But John, as somebody who mentors and pulls a creative community together to create the things he's doing, take it away.
Well, you have a lot of vehicles. Not only like with us, where we have meetings and stuff, and we set up free times to do things. You have conventions. They always have panels. They always have open discussions on those types of things. Your local library more than likely has writers groups that are there for that particular reason. I think that every writers group should have somebody that's there as a liaison to stop the arguing and stuff. But that's a different thing. That's to stop the the name calling and all the other stuff when people's kind of get their feelings hurt.
Listen here, you son of a bitch.
Oh, you've met my mother.
Twice.
Both in a dark alley.
But so if you think that you need assistance, it's still on you to show a little bit of effort to go out and try to find these groups. They're not as hard anymore, obviously, because of the resources that we have on the internet. But those are the majority of the places where you're going to find like-minded people. Conventions are set up for like-minded people usually to be at. They are a gathering point for those particular things. If I'm a sports fan, I'm not going to the Comic-Con, I'm going to the stadium over there because the like-minded people
Or the sports bar.
People that I want to, or a sports bar.
Which would be the library equivalent. John, when you're done, pass it over to Tempe.
Go ahead, Tempe.
Oh no, I was just gonna say Instagram is a good place to find other writers. There's a really big following group of writers on Instagram that are supportive. If they find out you write, that they're interested in what you're writing, they'll ask questions, they'll interact, they'll help you out. I would advise you to stay away from Twitter. The people on Twitter are just, I don't know what
Mean?
their problem is. They're just, mean is not the word for it. They're very critical. They're very self-absorbed. They are no help. But the Instagram group tends to be a little bit different. The Facebook groups are hit and miss. Most of those you're going to find people are just promoting their own books, and that's all they're in there doing.
Or it's a social mosh pit.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. But as Travis said, you're looking at it. We do this show to help people, and we're here to answer questions. And if you ever see me at a convention and you've got a question, pull me over and ask me. I'm happy to talk to you. I'll be glad to give you that time to sit there and talk with you. Erin?
First, John. Wait, John. Then me. Then Erin.
Oh, sorry.
Even with the places where you consider them probably a wasteland of intellectual thought, you usually are well enough versed in things where you can pick out the things that are discardable.
You can call bullshit.
But don't look at it as not a place where you can possibly get something from it. It might be a little harder, but it's just like mining or anything else. It's like, sometimes there's stuff that's worth there. Now, Instagram, yes, has a lot more groups that are good for those particular things. Reddit at one time can be that type of groups for those types of things.
Depending on the subreddit, yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
So,
but to that point too, John, let me point out, if you are a new writer, you may not be able to distinguish that yet. And some of that stuff may come across as very personal, very hateful, and you may not have that thick skin yet that you need to kind of, pull it apart and push it away. So if you're new to it, it's a little bit different.
I think if you're going there for help and assistance, you should kind of try to focus what you're looking for, I guess, within that thing. I think everybody pretty much knows that Twitter overall is a cesspool. I mean, I don't need, I think most people know that.
Let's pass it to Erin and then bounce back to me, please.
Okay. A couple things that both John and Tempe brought up was support. And I have to hit this. Support works both ways. It's one of those, hey, if you're going to approach somebody at a con or online or anything, invest in them first. It's great to go, hey, Tempe, I love, can you read my stuff? Or, hey, it's much better, hey, I've read all 5 of your books. I'm trying to do something similar. I'd love some input. Is a much better approach, because now it's, I don't want to say transactional, but at least it's one of those, oh, okay, you're worth my time to friggin' do this. Okay, you're going to listen to what I say. You're not just going to gloss over. You're just, oh, you're a published author, and that's all I know about you is one thing. Whereas, oh, no, I've seen what you've done here. I've seen how you've grown. I think I'm on the same path. What advice can you give? The other thing that I had on there was Poe's Law. Poe's Law says the written word, absent of any other kind of expression, doesn't convey sarcasm. It can be taken exactly as it is. We as writers have to be constantly wary of this. And that's probably one of the biggest things about like Twitter versus Instagram. Twitter's really character confined, and it can come across as mean or full of twats, is what it really comes across as. Because it's one of those, oh, I've got freaking, 140 characters, and I'm trying to convey as much information in this dense format as possible, and we run into that technical problem of your eyes glaze over or you hit them with a meanness to drive the point home. Travis?
Michael, before I say my piece, because I have a few things to talk on here, do you want to say anything on this?
I think when it comes to building a community, a lot of things will happen just as a result of doing stuff. So you may be surprised just how naturally things happen. You may be in a space like you're future minded and you're wondering how everything's going to play out, but I noticed that just the more you do, the more things happen. Energy begets energy, and friendliness begets friendliness, obviously. And so go out and and be brave and say hi and buy a book. And there's always something to learn from someone else, and so that's a good mindset to have too.
Okay, I'm going to take away for a few minutes and probably wrap up the show and then pass around for final thoughts here. First of all, let me say about Instagram, or possibly even Twitter, but especially Instagram, learn how to use a hashtag. As somebody who is just reading Instagram or interacting, hashtags are invaluable for finding the material you want. Follow a few of your favorite authors, see what hashtags they're using. Click on those hashtags, see if that's the content you're looking for. Once you find a hashtag with the content you're looking for, you can follow a hashtag the way you follow a person. And then it puts that material into your, I want to call it a stream, but feed. Thank you, yes. The other thing I'm going to tell you about is, first of all, you're on the internet. There is no excuse for not finding writer groups. No excuse at all. If you haven't found one, you're not looking. And that's harsh, but it's true. There are so many out there. The problem is, once you find them, is weeding out, as Tempe pointed out, what works for you, which we'll just call that trash, or what doesn't work for you, which is trash, and what works for you, which is value. And it's different for everybody. Some people want that snarky sarcasm. Some people have a thick skin. Some people want to be coddled. And it's all fair. There is one group that started here on Twitter and built a Discord channel called the Writers Network. And if anybody here is part of the Writers Network, feel free to post a link to that Discord. I do not have it available right now and can't pull it up due to my bandwidth restrictions. But it's a group of people that wanted to create the writing category on Twitch, who then formed a Discord to kind of band together and do this. So there are a lot of people out there doing this. I have been trying to do it for years now, putting together Facebook groups, interacting with Facebook groups, and other social media here and there. Not so much Facebook for the past 2 years. But again, it's a matter of once you're in a group or create a group, you watch it turn into everybody's just trying to sell their book to other people trying to sell their book. Or suddenly everybody's talking about, here's their cat pictures, which I fucking love a cat picture. But I'm in a writer's group, not in a cat picture group. Please stop putting up your cat pictures. I don't care about your kid or your car. Yeah, we're a social group, but we're here to talk about this. And then it gets so dry where everybody's just trying to read something, but nobody's posting. So you got to look around. You got to find what works for you. And then a comment about coming up to somebody and saying, hey, I want to interact with you. Thank you, Wordowin. Thank you very much. There you go, guys. There's a link to the group I was talking about. Thank you, Wordowin. I believe Wordowin is a moderator there, if I'm not mistaken, or one of the admins. And also a streamer in itself. Guys, if you are streamers, now's the time to throw that exclamation point me into my chat to let everybody follow your Twitch channel. Here's what I'm going to tell you. I have had a lot of people walk up to me and ask for advice. And I love to give it. That's why this show exists. That's why I interact with people, also to learn myself. But a lot of these folks who come up and ask for advice, as soon as I give advice, they immediately shoot it down.
Wow.
And initially I went, oh, well, maybe they don't understand. Let me explain. And then it gets to a point where after a while, days, months, years, I finally learned to recognize people. They're not there to learn. They're not asking for advice. They're asking for recognition. They're asking to be recognized as an equal. They just do it in the guise of, oh, give me advice. Oh, this is what I think about. Interrupting your point of advice. I will still ask for advice. You guys will watch me on this show. There's times I don't even answer the questions I'm asking. I think I know the answer, but I want to hear what these guys think. I want to learn something new, a new perspective, a new twist on what I think I already know. And it's valuable to me. And there's other times, like right now, I definitely want to put my voice in. We're down to about 60 seconds left in the show. That's all I have on that. Anybody got any final closing thoughts? Super short. John.
With the groups, don't worry about who's not doing what, because then you're not doing anything.
Good point. Erin?
Check out the cult classics. Your cult movies, things like that, because they're new and interesting ways to do something. A big thing that you can learn is technique. We can't teach you creative. We can teach you technique and how to do some stuff. Whether it's watching Rocky Horror Picture Show, Tommy Wiseau's The Room, which is a cult classic and the worst movie ever made.
The Room, really?
The Room.
Okay, I found it very interesting. But go on.
Not Room.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Oh.
The Room. You're tearing me apart. That one.
Yeah.
I don't
I
think I
did
know
not
that
hit her. I did not. Oh, hi, Mark.
I haven't seen it. I really want to.
one. Okay, Erin?
That's what I got.
Michael?
Plan where you can, but ultimately let your characters follow your characters and be the type of author that you need to be to tell their story.
Tempe?
You just have to find your own way. I mean, what works for me might not work for you. The bottom line is you're going to have to figure out your own path. You're going to have to find your own way, and you're going to have to do what works for you.
Very good. Thank you guys for joining us. We got some outro music. Don't forget you can catch us on podcasts across the internet. And if you're listening to a podcast, come join us live at twitch.tv/Travis Tavern Talk. Have a great night, guys. Here's the outro. Maybe, if I can get the music. I found it. Here it is over here. There we go.
Night, everyone.
Night.
Bye.
See you tomorrow.
Thank you for joining author Travis I. Sivart and the other writers, content creators, and all-around amazing people for our discussion here on Night. Join us again soon, and until you do, make sure you create with passion, enjoy the journey, and remember, every night can be right enough.
Thanks for joining us, guys. Appreciate it.